What's up everybody, Demon back, and welcome to a brand new video. This one is going to be my Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 3 breakdown for The Cell. This one was not a super dense episode, but there's still quite a bit of things that you probably may have missed that I want to be talking about here. Sorry this video came out so late. I was having trouble getting the screenshots that I needed in order to make the video. Let's get into the breakdown. So, I wanted to talk about some of the background for this episode, because that's one thing that a lot of people were confused about, is some of the things that were brought up in the episode. Who is Dwight? Well, if you guys forgot, Dwight was the dude showed up in Always Accountable. In that episode, they didn't refer to him as anything, I don't believe. But he showed up, he stole Daryl's stuff. The girl who was with him, her name was Sherry. She helped Dwight steal Daryl's stuff. They stole his crossbow, and his motorcycle, and then they took off. And Daryl wound up getting both back, and then he wound up getting both taken away by Dwight. When Dwight showed up again, he had a burnt face. He killed Denise, the doctor. Eugene bit him. Eugene bit his dick, and then Dwight was also Daryl's adversary, who shot him in the shoulder and to threaten to kill him in the season 7 premiere. He threatened to kill him, shot him in the shoulder last year, the episode before the finale. So that's Dwight. There were some references to these episodes in this episode that some people really didn't understand what they were because they didn't remember. So that's what I wanted to clear up here. Now, moving into the actual episode, we start out with Dwight watching TV. There's quite a bit of notable things to talk about here. The show that he's watching is called Who's the Boss? The question that is answered this episode with Negan. Negan is the boss. He runs everything. Everything is his or will be. He is the boss. Now we see Dwight wearing Daryl's vest, so that's interesting. I don't know why they're turning Dwight into a Daryl wannabe. I really don't want them to ruin the comic character, because Dwight is an awesome comic character, and I want him to stick around in the show and become what he is in the comics. Him and Daryl could definitely coexist together, and it would be great. Now we see the lyrics to the song, Better Stop Dreaming of the Quiet Life, because it's one you'll never know. One will never know. I think it's referring to Dwight and Daryl's relationship. Better Stop Dreaming of the Quiet Life is better stop dreaming of good times, because it's one will never know. So better stop dreaming of a life afterward that is good. It's one will never know. I think the will is representative of Daryl and Dwight, because if you think about it, both of them are stuck in this awful situation. Both of them are stuck in this situation where Daryl is imprisoned by Dwight, and Dwight is imprisoned by Negan, and both of them have a terrible life because of it. Now, Daryl's is a little bit worse, but still, they are not living well. You can see, and quit running for that runaway bus, because those rosy days are few. It just, once again, just pointing out how they're in a bad situation. But also, notable thing here, three notable things. Wow, three notable things. Number one, there's a working television set, so we haven't seen one of those since the hospital with Beth. Number two, there is enough downtime at the sanctuary for them to be playing games, whatever game that is. Number three, there is electricity there, which is pretty clear based off the fact that there's a TV working, but behind the girl you can see that there's a running light bulb. Moving on, you just see more of the lyrics representing the episode, because time is short and life is cruel, but it's up to us to change. I think it really is. It's up to Daryl and Dwight to change their situation. Only they can change the situation they're in. Then we see Dwight whittling more, which was another thing that was pointed out in Always Accountable. Dwight had some whittled away little army man that Daryl stole from him and never gave back, but, Dwight stole everything else from Daryl, so it doesn't really matter. Then at the bottom here, you can see life at the sanctuary is cruel. Life at the sanctuary is not something to be messing around with. You see some dude takes off his shirt and throws down with someone else, and they beat him up. He doesn't really stand a chance in the fight. All three dudes wind up getting on him and beating him down, and it goes to show that everyone else in the sanctuary just kind of sat there and watched very casually as this happened. No one really cared because it's an everyday occurrence there because their life is so cruel. Moving on, there's the number 39 shows up twice in a row in the episode. I really have no idea what it could represent, but I honestly have no idea. If any of you guys have any idea, leave a comment down below and help me out here. I don't know. Then we see Negan walk past everyone, and everyone has to kneel for him. One of the saviors winds up, or I guess he's not a savior technically because he works for points, but one of the dudes at the sanctuary gives him this mean look. He actually plays a big part in this episode. If you guys were wondering, this was an actual scene from the comic books when Negan is walking Carl around the sanctuary. He's showing off how everyone respects him and everyone kneels for him when he walks past, so some funny stuff there. Then we get this sandwich making montage of Dwight making a sandwich. This is going on the whole time from the start of the episode till now. I actually think, because if you guys remember, this was supposed to be an 85-minute episode that was shortened down to be 60 minutes. I think this would have been a much longer, much more fleshed out sequence instead of just a montage of Dwight doing his rounds in the sanctuary, picking up supplies for a sandwich, and I'm sure the sandwich would have come like 10, 15 minutes into the episode instead of right away, because there is a lot that gets skimmed over, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later when there's a certain person being strung up on a fence outside, and we really don't care because we didn't get that fleshed out look on this character. It was the same dude who was getting beaten up earlier in the episode that we just talked about, but I think they didn't do a great job at fleshing this stuff out because they shortened the episode so much. Also, this is our first look at the Sanctuary from the Walking Dead TV series. In the comic series, it is a heavily fortified big factory that has a sea of walkers on the outside to protect against the dead coming in. We actually got a glimpse of it in the season 5 second half poster. You guys can see there in the bottom left. And then we don't actually see any full shots of the outside of the sanctuary this episode. I think they're waiting to reveal that later, but they show us little glimpses of what the outside looks like here with this Walker Field, so we know that it's still there. Kind of like Fear the Walking Dead's Walker Field, it looks like from what they did, but because it's not really the same thing as the Sea of Walkers that's going on in the comic series, but whatever. Now we see Dwight making Daryl a dog food sandwich and feeding it to him. Daryl's naked in the cell. They play a specific song called Easy Street. Everyone on Earth hates this song because it was used to torture Daryl, but me. I actually found the song to be pretty decent. I didn't have any problems with it. In fact, I kind of liked the song, so there's that. But just kind of funny that they tortured Daryl with such an upbeat song. Also, the brand of the dog food is A-OK. For Walking Dead fans, you should know that A plays a very important unknown message in the overall series. First time we saw it was in Season 2 when Glenn was in the shootout in the bar during Triggerfinger. We also saw it show up multiple times since then. We saw it show up all over the place. It showed up in Alexandria, the train car from Season 4. It's been everywhere, and no one really knows exactly what it means just yet. So then we get Daryl in the cell. He's actually let out to go see a doctor. He bumps into Sherry, who tells him, whatever they say, just do it, and then Dwight scolds her. Interestingly enough, during this scene, we get Dr. Carson. Now, Dr. Carson is the name of the doctor at the Hilltop, as well as the Sanctuary. They're two different people. I believe, you guys can see in the bottom right here, I believe that's the comic character that he represents. If I'm not mistaken, the two are related. They're brothers, but I could be wrong. And I feel like, sorry, still getting used to being my own assistant, could be referring to Dr. Carson at the Sanctuary, lost his assistant, aka his brother, because his brother moved on to the Hilltop, or it could mean that that was someone that Rick and the group wound up killing during last year's episode, Not Tomorrow Yet, and I would really love that. If it was revealed some point in the episode, the extended episode maybe, that his assistant that he wound up losing was actually someone who was killed during this compound raid. That'd be an awesome tie into that episode, and I think it would be really fitting if it was someone Glenn killed, because we know Glenn was killed because of Negan, so I think it'd be fitting if Glenn wound up killing one of Negan's doctors, so that way it would be kind of like he had more of an impact on Negan, and it'd be a nice little throw to the fans. From there, we get Daryl being transported through the hall. Negan shows up and stops him. We actually see just how much control Negan has over his people when he says, you stand right there, you over here, and they have to do it. They do it. Not only do they kneel for him every time they see him, but they have to obey his commands like dogs. If you look here, you stand over there. It's like a command you'd give an animal, like a dog, and then sit. It's another command you'd give to a dog. I found that really weird. It kind of threw me off. Also, with the dog food they're feeding Daryl, I don't know if there's any setup in the previous episodes for it, but it took me off guard. It kind of like Negan really doesn't treat his people very well. So, I mean, that's not what took me off guard. Just the extent that the show is going to, convey that to us is that Negan treats his people like animals, and his people treat their prisoners like animals. From there, Daryl goes outside, and Dwight's kind of taunting him a little bit. He's saying he's getting the hang of Daryl's crossbow. And then he lays out 3 options for him. You could be them, or me, or them. When he says you could be them, he's referring to the people stringing up walkers outside of the fence. He says you could be me. He's referring to you could be a savior. You could not work for points. You could not work as a prisoner. You could be one of us. You could be one of Negan's men. And then he says, or them, referring to the walkers that are being strung up. So those are Daryl's 3 options. I think Daryl's going to opt out and just go for he's going to be a prisoner, and that'll be his role until Rick or someone saves him. Hopefully Carl. Hopefully they give that moment to Carl like they did in the comic book, but who knows. The walker that they're stringing up, like I mentioned earlier, is actually the dude who took off his shirt to throw down in the fight. He got killed and is now being strung up outside the wall. I could relate this to the Claimers from Season 4, the way they killed that one dude for lying and then threw him out. That's just the way, that's kind of a parallel I saw between it. When you fight, you wind up getting killed and your body rots because of it. That's just the way that's the connection I made. I don't know if any of you made that connection, but I don't really care that he's strung up. Like, okay, we get it. Saviors are cruel to their people. That's the theme of the episode. But I think that character, the redhead, was supposed to be fleshed out in the 85-minute episode, and I don't think it really worked because it wasn't fleshed out. Moving on, Dwight's telling Daryl to make it easy for himself. Daryl says he's not ever going to kneel. Dwight says he said that too. Daryl says, yeah, I know. Dwight, that's the thing, man. You don't, but you will. This conversation's kind of meaningful. It really just goes to show Daryl's being stubborn, standing his ground. He's not going to give away to Negan. I made a parallel here between Daryl and Merle. Merle always saying, I ain't gonna beg. He said that in Season 1. He also said it in Season 3. So I found a connection between the two characters there. Now they play the song again. Daryl tries to plot his escape. Negan and Dwight have a little bit of conversation back and forth. Negan telling Dwight some people are harder to break than others. Well, at the same time, right afterward, he says, you're doing a great job. He basically says you want a night with your wife, who's now my wife. So Dwight doesn't really say anything, and Negan tells him he's kidding. This whole scene is just because Negan is trying to humiliate Dwight. Some people are harder to break than others. Basically saying Daryl is harder to break than you were. Him saying you can have a blast from the past with you-know-who. Basically saying your wife's mine now. Deal with it. And then here he says, pick whoever you want as long as she says yes. If you read the comics, you know Negan is very strongly against rape, which is, I think it's great that they're bringing that into the show here. Pick whoever you want as long as she says yes. Then he taunts him some more by saying Eugene bit his penis pretty hard, so there's no really coming back from that. And then Dwight tells him it's fine. Just poking fun at that situation. I found that pretty funny. And then here, Dwight saying he hasn't finished the job. We find out a little bit more about Negan's rules. He says, what the hell are you talking about? You earn what you take. It's not like It's not like you have to earn something to take. You take something and then you earn it. I don't know. Just trying to flesh out Negan's rules a little bit more. Um, Moving on, turns out that one of Negan's men ran away and Dwight wants to go get him back. Negan doesn't want him to, but Dwight wants to, so Negan lets him go. But before he lets him go, once again, really hammering in that dog thing, I found this really weird. This is the point in the episode that kind of threw me off, was when Negan presses their head together, pats him on the back and says good boy and sends him on his way. That is something you do to a dog. That is not something you do to a human, and that's where I started to draw the connection that, oh, here we go. Here we have something interesting. We have a bunch of hands strung up to an angel. Now, there could be some religious messages here, but I'm not very religious, so I don't understand them. But then Dwight runs off on his motorcycle. I think for the hands, one connection that could be made is that maybe it's a connection to Negan forcing people to cut their others' hands off, like what he almost made Rick do to Carl, which is also the reason Simon had the pen, a really weird thing to have in the apocalypse, but Simon still had a pen on him. So I think they may have done that before. Who knows? Now, they forget to lock Daryl's door, it looks like, so Daryl escapes, and this whole scene is intercut with this thing going on with Dwight, where he stops at a bridge, looks up, a walker flies off, nearly flattens him, but he lands. This is a comic scene where Jesus accidentally knocks the walker off, so I wonder if we'll see Jesus next episode from his perspective, accidentally knocking that walker off. I think that'd be a really cool tie-in. And then it's really poorly edited, but if you look quickly, there's a freeze frame of something hitting the ground and then blood splattering on Dwight's face. Once again, there's a lot cut from this episode, the 85-minute episode, so what actually happened was we saw another walker fall off the bridge, hit the ground, explode on Dwight's face, although the episode did a really terrible job of showing that off. Now Daryl's running away again. Sherry's telling him, please go back. Daryl doesn't listen and runs off. He's wound up getting caught, and once again, I haven't mentioned this yet, but Daryl's shirt has A written on the front and AI on the back. I think in this context, A isn't a mystery. I think it means Alexandria, and I think the I represents inmate, so it's AI, Alexandria, inmate. Other interesting things here, we have Rick's Colt Python in the hands of a savior. Negan walks into a circle of men surrounding Daryl saying, are we pissing our pants yet? Just like last year, just like the comics, really great. Then he kind of teases Daryl a little more, then goes to kill him, and Daryl doesn't budge, and Negan is amazed by that. He wasn't actually going to kill him. This is just one big test, trying to break Daryl down even more. And then Negan tells Daryl, you don't scare easy. I love that. Then he jokes around with him a little more. She's not feeling too thirsty, but I am. He says, I'm going to go get me a drink. Pretty funny. One connection here is you don't scare easy, do you? I like that compared to you don't scare easy. I love that with Daryl and Dwight as opposed to Merle and Glenn. Crazy connection here is Daryl and with Negan and Daryl and Merle and Glenn. Pretty cool connection here because Merle and Daryl are brothers and Glenn got killed as a result of Daryl, so just kind of a cool connection here. Moving on, Negan walks away. If you look in the background, you can see that although Daryl gets beaten up, he actually does land the first two punches on the Saviors before getting beat up. Now we cut to a deleted scene. Yeah, I know, it's weird. But there's a deleted scene of this episode of Dwight crashing his motorcycle. I don't know what makes him crash. I don't know why he crashes. I don't know. All I know is that he crashes. It was seen in the Season 7 trailer from Comic-Con, and it wasn't seen in this episode because 85 minutes cut to 60. So then Dwight walks away with his motorcycle, and cut back to Daryl getting punched in the face, blood flying out of his mouth. He lands on the ground. The really quick editing here reminds me of the time Daryl took Lucille to the head in Rick's vision. Just another quick edit of blood splatter coming from his head, so interesting parallel there. Now Dwight walks over, winds up seeing this savior who ran away. He goes and tackles him. Daryl's winds up getting locked back up in the cell. Sherry comes to basically say, I really am sorry. You told me I was going to be, but I already am. And then she leaves. Dwight and this savior have this conversation. Dwight is pretty mad at the guy at first for running away. Everything's his or will be. The guy basically says, no, that's what he wants us to think. He kneels. This is the last time I'm going to kneel. Dwight actually convinces him to stand up and go back to the sanctuary. I think this was just because he couldn't kill the guy head on. I don't think Dwight, because the guy mentions we used to be friendly, I think Dwight feels some humanity here. He says, "You feel that?" He yells that at the guy. I think that's because Dwight is starting to feel his humanity again, and he hates it. So when he gets the guy to stand up, it's a mercy killing. He shoots him in the back. Although he doesn't shoot him in the head, I think that was to save his skin also. I think he knew, if I take this guy back, Negan's going to kill him. I might as well do it here. That way he doesn't feel the pain there. But at the same time, if I don't take him back, Negan's going to punish me, so I have to take his body back, and he has to be somewhat alive. Then Dwight and Sherry have this conversation, reassuring each other that coming back was the right thing to do. Dwight tells Daryl, "You got your friend killed, I got Tina killed. Don't act like you don't know the score." And then he sets up a Polaroid picture that is revealed to be Glenn. Now, this is really, really great parallel here between the time that Glenn saw the Polaroid wall to now. We all know Glenn winds up dead, and they take a Polaroid of him, leading to Daryl having the Polaroid of Glenn. So it comes full circle. Glenn's story came full circle right there. But I am confused here, because the picture was taken during the day. The Polaroid was taken during the day, yet the picture of him was a nighttime picture of his body. So I don't know what the heck's going on there. Just a little continuity error, I'd assume. Now they play a new song for Daryl, which is unlike Easy Street, which is an upbeat song. This one's a sad song, and it winds up breaking Daryl. Dwight gets a little bit emotional here, too, and he walks away. The next morning, they bring Daryl in to see Negan. Negan says, "Jesus, you look awful," just like he said to Maggie pretty much in Season 6 finale. Then he teases Daryl a little bit more. There are rules. Once again, hammering in the fact that there are rules. Then he says, "Dwight came back, made me take notice." Lucille's a stickler for the rules. I love that. So he says, "Dwight gets the iron, and I got to marry his super hot wife." Humiliating Dwight in front of Daryl, while at the same time telling Daryl this could happen to you too. If you guys are wondering what the iron is, it is a legit burning iron that Negan sticks on people's faces to burn their face. Here we go with Negan telling Daryl, "All you gotta do is answer one question. Who are you?" Unlike before in the episode when everyone answered Negan, and also Negan's line last year, it wasn't Negan's line, but it was a line about him, "We are all Negan." Daryl responds with Daryl, which really ticks Negan off, because that means he's still defiant, so they lock him back up. Then Daryl says to Dwight, "I get why you did it, why you took it. You were thinking about someone else. That's why I can't." What he means here is he gets why Dwight took Negan's deal to become a savior. He did it because he was thinking about someone else. He was thinking about Sherry. He says, "That's why I can't." He can't take Negan's deal because Negan killed Glenn, and so that would be dishonoring Glenn, and so he can't take the deal. Now, at the end of the episode here, we see that the savior that Dwight shot in the back is tied up on the fence here. We see the face that Dwight gives it really shows that he is starting to regret being a savior. And that's the end of the episode. It's an amazing episode in terms of, fleshing out Dwight, but I still think it's a pretty weak episode in terms of everything else, so I'm still going to have to give it a low score, 7.5 out of 10. I really can't give it anything higher. Next episode looks amazing. Looks like we're catching up with roughly issue 103 of the comic book series, Little Pig, Let Me In. It's going to be great. 85-minute episode. This one's actually extended. I cannot wait. Super excited. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. D-Man out.